Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
You meet someone online and there's this instant connection. It's amazing how much the two of you just seem to click. They live somewhere far away and there's some plausible reason they can't travel to meet you. They tell you they're in love with you and you feel optimistic for the first time in a long time. They have a successful career, yet somehow they need money from you to solve a short-term problem, always with the promise of paying you back. Time goes on and they need more money more urgently. You've started to see the cracks and begin to wonder whether they've been lying this whole time. All of a sudden it hits you. You've been scammed. Fool Me Twice is the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, a woman who was drawn into the dangerous world of sweetheart scams. After a trip overseas to meet a stranger, a dangerous altercation in a Manchester hotel room, and thousands of pounds lost for good, she's here to tell her story. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Ozcast Network, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Hi everyone, I'm Jules Hannaford and I am the head of Year 13 and I would really like to welcome today Jeff Rotmeyer from Impact Hong Kong. He is here to speak to us all about kindness and giving back to the community. He is the founder of Impact Hong Kong and it started with a small group of people wanting to show kindness to those in need and it's grown into a great organisation which helps the homeless in Hong Kong. I'd like to welcome you, Jeff, and over to you.
It's great to be here. Hope you're all doing well. I just recently gave a talk, I guess last week or maybe 2 weeks ago now, to students at West Island School. It was really nice. I used to be a teacher in Hong Kong for 13 years. I taught in a public primary school in Taiwan Ho. Education for me has always been a top priority. And, even starting this homeless charity, it still is. If you want to create change and massive impact in Hong Kong, you have to think about the youth. The future of Hong Kong, future leaders, future government officials, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm quite proud of our charity. And, we do spend a good amount of time making sure that we are going into schools, working with about 20, 30 schools a year, and hopefully expanding on that, getting more and more into local schools. When I spoke the other day, I always really start educational talks in asking them first, what do you think is the best thing to give the homeless outside to help them? People that tonight are scared and don't know where to go. People are going to be sleeping outside. You slept out last night in terrible rain, rats and mosquitoes all around you, fear of being stolen from, fear of being kicked while you're sleeping. Thinking about the pain from your past that led to that situation, thinking about the hopelessness of your future. These are individuals who are suffering. What's the best thing that we can give them? What do they need most? And it's pretty amazing when you work with students, you very often get those standard answers, right? Food, water, clothing, shelter, money, a job. You get these very, very standard answers. But then I could do one very simple sharing of an individual that I know who is sitting outside in pain. And after relaying that message to the students, 5 minutes later, I'll ask again, what's the best thing that we can give them? What do they need most? And very quickly, their answers change to friendship, love, community, connection. It's pretty amazing, in 5 minutes. And it's one of the great things about working with the youth is that they're open-minded, they're open-hearted. You ask those students, you say, well, how many of you care about that person that I just told you about? It's amazing that almost every single one, of course, they put their hands up. They say, wow, you care about somebody you've never met before. How cool is that? It is cool, but it should be the norm. Caring for people in our community should be the norm. When we see people in pain, when we see people who are hurting, our first thought should not be of judgment. Our first thought should not be of criticizing someone we don't know, calling them a label like lazy. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to try to predict what people are thinking that we've never met. But it does make sense to care for people in need. And And yeah, ImpactHK started with that ambition just to go out and care for people, just to go out and show kindness to people one night a month. That started a bit of a movement, which has led us to where we are today. And now we're a registered charity. I guess out on the streets, helping the homeless about 100 times a month. It's about 25 times a week in different locations around Hong Kong. And what we do, we call kindness walks. You know, when you start doing something every day like that, you really do learn and you have to adapt. And we did. And we learned that really, you know, the goal on the streets is not about forcing ourselves on people. It's not about photographing people for our Instagram pages or putting this person in a position where they're forced to have a conversation with us to get food. Instead, really our approach on the streets is just go out, show kindness to people, show care to people, and make sure that they understand that the only reason we're doing that is because we care. You know, when you do earn the trust of individuals like that, because we see them 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, that results in them trusting us and coming with us to our center where we get to know them better and hopefully develop friendships. From there, we then offer them opportunity, you know, as good friends do. And, you know, we offer them opportunities, we house them. First step is really in guest houses, small hotels, and that transitions into apartments, co-living spaces. And we also employ them. So they work for us. And when they work for us, their job is in helping people. You know, then we're going to be talking more about that today. But, you know, that's really a big part of why it's so successful, because the work that they do for us is meaningful work. You know, they're cooking for the homeless, they're helping the homeless, they're serving the street cleaners, they're helping the elderly, they're helping in recycling. So the job that they do for ImpactHK is very meaningful. It's helping people. You know, when you help others, it also helps yourself. You know, I know that very well. They've got the home and they've got the job, right? Tick those 2 boxes. To be honest with you, there's not many, you know, homeless people in Hopeful Land, and I'm not assuming you know too much about the homeless situation here, but, you know, if you took 100 people off the streets tonight, if you got 100 people right off the streets, you got them a free hotel, you said, you know what, you can stay there for 1 year, no rent, stay there for 1 year to get yourself back on your feet. You did that and you put 100 people into a room, that gave them that opportunity. It's probably my guess that probably 95% or 99% go back to being homeless at the end of that year. It just wouldn't work. You have such a huge range of mental illness on the streets. You have people who are in incredible pain, and they became homeless for a reason. And that, in my opinion, the greatest cause of that homelessness is really a lack of connection. It's a lack of someone in their lives who they love and loves them, and an opportunity to be housed. I personally, I mentioned this yesterday on our Facebook page. I posted about it. You know, I couldn't become homeless tomorrow. I lost everything. I lost my job, lose all my money, lose everything today. I would not be homeless tomorrow or the next week or the next month, because I have a family that would help me. And I trust them and they trust me. And I do trust that they would take care of me and I would have that opportunity. The people that we meet outside, they're alone. And when you're alone in that level of pain outside, with that level of hopelessness, a job is not going to just make you jump up, right? Cleaning job 7 days a week, 6 days a week, less than minimum wage. You're not going to leap up and say, yes, I've got a future now. Everybody needs friendship. Everybody needs community. Everybody needs love. Everybody needs connection. You know, without that, are you really solving the problem? We try to give the people that we help off the streets as much connection as possible. We have a counseling program, so they see our counselor once a week. We have a mentorship program once a week as well. That's on short-term, long-term goals, short-term family friendship goals, career goals, and health goals. You know, their day-to-day goals might be as simple as, you know, let's drink 4 cups of water today. You know, it could be communication workshops that we run. We have sport classes every day. We have art classes every day. We build that up with some more fun and laughter to the program. Really, it's about friendship. You know, we genuinely are friends with the people that we help off the streets. We're creating a bigger community, a family, really. And one thing we found during this time when we employ the homeless is that this wrongful stereotype that the homeless are lazy is just ridiculous. One thing we have a really big problem with now is actually trying to get the people that we've helped off the streets to stop working. Trying to get them to take a holiday is very, very difficult, because we're trying to make sure that they take their days off, but they won't do it. You know, they just want to keep working because they love it. It's really a family. It's been quite an interesting experience. And we now serve on the streets. It's really close to 6,000 meals a week. It's actually turned into a huge feeding program. It was food alone, 6,000 meals a week to the homeless, elderly street cleaners. Every day in our center, we have about 250 people for each meal. And also we do our outreach program called Kindness Walks every night in different locations. It's really turned into a big one. And then in terms of housing, we've now helped, I think it's close to 180 people into shelter in the last 2 years. We're still a young charity. We just turned 3. But really now we're seeing that we're housing about a person a day off the streets in 2020. So we really are getting quite effective in helping people make sure that they're cared for. They know they're cared for. We earn their trust. And then we give them this opportunity off the streets. So it's been quite an interesting ride. And as a charity, every step of the way, the only reason we could get to where we are is because of just a huge caring community. We've had about 6,000 volunteers in the last 3 years. So it's unbelievable. So when you have that many volunteers, sky's the limit, I think, in terms of where we can go with this. We just keep attacking. And the reason we can do that is we just have so many caring volunteers, donors. When I got given the opportunity to share with West Island School and with the students and also with you, I was excited. The more people that know about the homeless, I think the more people that care about them. We want to continue just to keep spreading this message. I'd love to open it up now if there's some questions or have a bit of a conversation now. I'm kind of staring into my microphone, into my camera lens on my iPad, but it'd be good if we could open it up and maybe have some questions from you guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Parents, if you've got any questions for Jeff, could you type them in the chat for us, please? And then I'll feed the questions back to Jeff. But Jeff, I'll get the ball rolling and just ask you a little bit about what we as a community can do to support Impact Hong Kong.
The key point in everything we do is the more people that know, the better. Just by simply signing up for a chat like this through Zoom, weird age we're in right now, but just in signing up, I really appreciate that. Just in showing care for people in need. I think that's essential. Everything starts from there. And I think as a charity, we've kind of tapped into something that there are just so many caring people in Hong Kong that are really looking for an opportunity to help. Our kindness walks are really quite popular, which are our volunteering activities. So on our website calendar, ImpactHK.org, if you go to the weekly calendar, you can sign up for kindness walks there. It leads to Hands on Hong Kong, who are a charity partner of ours. You can sign up there and then you can bring your son or daughter along. It's a really meaningful volunteering activity. It's a real eye-opener. And it's also a really good activity because you'll join the event with us, but then after that, the day after and the week after, you're going to be changed in many ways because you'll literally have your eyes open to the plight people around you. You'll notice things. My daughter, she's 10. My daughter, for example, when she sees a street cleaner in our neighborhood or in any neighborhood, it's ingrained in her to care for that person. She automatically, I can see it in her eyes and I can feel it and I can hear it by the way she talks. But, you can really see how she absolutely cares for those people. She appreciates what they do for our city. And that's really through volunteering. It's really the best way to do everything. I mean, in many ways, it's caring, giving, and serving. And I think it's really opens your eyes up, but it also does so much for everybody.
Jeff Heemer's asked how the students from West Island could be involved on a regular basis during the summer, because it would be really good for them to be involved in Impact Hong Kong. Yeah,
I think we really have to do better as a charity in getting more volunteering activities for the youth. Right now, we're kind of restricted in some ways of we must have parent involvement. So during the summer, unlimited, we're going to probably have so many walks. It'd be great to get as many youth as you can in there. But it would take the parent or an adult signing up, and then you bring your son or daughter along. That's really all we have at the moment. In our weekend walks, we have Saturday 4 o'clock. We're adding in more weekend walks because there's so many families that do want to get involved.
Sorry, Jeff. A lot of the students are probably turning 18, the year 13. So right. Do you think once they hit 18, they can sign up, can't they? Because they're considered adult.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no problem. To be honest with you, the walks are extremely safe. I've been doing this for 6 years. I can't even recall one single action where I was in danger in any way. The individuals that we're helping, they're not violent or scary. They're just absolutely sad. And they just really appreciate it when we do the walks. And the reason that they do is they'll know exactly who we are because we see them, 3-4 times a week. It really does work. Yeah, it's a great activity for the youth, for sure. We need to find ways, especially during the summer, to provide this meaningful opportunity for the youth.
Yeah, because we're all going to be here over the summer. So it's great to find ways that students can give back to the community. Karen has asked, how do you get around the language barrier with non-Cantonese speaking volunteers? Great question.
I don't speak Cantonese myself. Very, very little. I say moment thai about 100 times a day. I've got about 5 words in my repertoire. But really, it's a testament to our philosophy as a charity. These walks are not really about the conversation. These walks are about kindness. And, it's a universal language, sounding a bit cheesy, but it really is just about going out and showing kindness to people. Organizations, charities, they make this mistake all the time in forcing conversation with the homeless, forcing conversation with people in need, people who are hungry. You go out to serve a homeless individual, you have food, that person's starving. You're putting that person in this position where he's potentially forced to have a conversation with you to get food while you have 4 people standing around this person on the ground. And it's just not appropriate, really. The street is really about earning trust. And language-wise, it's a hello. It's a hello, it's a hi, it's a smile. And it's making sure that that individual knows that he's cared about. That trust-earning process is really what it's about. So when we do these kindness walks, we pass the food, we pass the hygiene product, we say hello, and then we continue walking. We have literature that we can give them quite often that makes them sure that they know that there's an opportunity with us. And the key is really not forcing people to get off the streets, because that never works. It's actually just providing that care, earning their trust, and then that opportunity that they have to step to. So yeah, language-wise, pretty easy.
Sorry, Jeff. Ariane has said other kids in West Island getting involved, and like you just said, they need parent support. But we've run little community projects where we've raised money, or we've got plastic containers or things like that for Impact Hong Kong. And also, just to let you know, the other keynote speakers for the Frontier program donated their fee to Impact Hong Kong. We'll be making a nice donation to Impact Hong Kong in the next couple of weeks. So thanks to Greg Orm and Gina Mareskia for doing that. Jeff, Andrea says her experience in the US is the top 4 causes of homelessness: a lack of affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, mental illness, and the lack of needed services, and substance abuse. Would you please educate us on what are the main causes of homelessness in Hong Kong? She says, thanks and keep up the great work.
I know, Andrea. Yeah. You too, Andrea. Keep up the great work as well. I will say, just touching on the last part about West Island School. West Island School, you guys are, in my opinion, I love USF and I love the support. I love the focus on educating about the youth giving back. And I'm really impressed with West Island School on the support you guys giving us, cook soups and this financial donation through this and the opportunity to share with you today. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Andrea, yes. So you look at all these things. I'm looking at the list: lack of affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, mental illness, substance abuse. When I look at that, I see all of those issues in Hong Kong, right? For sure. Let's look at them. If you look at them one by one, I think personally, my thought is lack of connection. If you don't have that one person in your life, you don't have that family, that network, that connection in your life, then all of these could be the tipping points of what could knock you over into homelessness. But if you did have that family, if you did have that connection, if you did have that support system, that rock in your life, lack of affordable housing, it wouldn't really matter. Poverty, mental illness, you see it all on the streets in Hong Kong. Just in my opinion, I think when you think about homelessness here, you really do see how a lack of connection and a lack of support is really the key. It's the main cause of homelessness in Hong Kong. And that's why I think, if you think about that, I think it's attainable in ending homelessness in Hong Kong. You're always going to have people fall down in society, but I think if you can refocus, especially in education, the importance of caring for people rather than focus on exams. If you put the focus on serving and helping other people, you educate about that. I think as a society, we grow stronger as a more caring society. And I think actually over time, there's a potential there. Affordable housing, of course, big problem here. How many homeless individuals outside can afford the $11,000 2-month deposit, first month's rent to get into a place once they've lost everything? It's pretty much impossible. That's why, as a charity, when we find individuals outside who have full-time jobs, like street cleaners, very simply just pay for their deposit, get them into an apartment, and they can then pay their own rent each and every month. Especially as a street cleaner, nobody should be working that hard, helping our city every single day, and they can't live in a home just because they can't afford the deposit. Unemployment's a huge thing now, especially with seniors, right? The average age of homelessness in Hong Kong is 58 at the moment. Very, very difficult with all the industry loss over the last 10 years or so. Very difficult for a 60-year-old man who's lost everything, lost his job, to then go and get a job. Really difficult. So we see a lot of elderly on the streets. And it's sad, the poverty in Hong Kong, man. I mean, you go out at 10 p.m. at night, you're going to see a 70-year-old or 80-year-old man, woman on the streets at night collecting recyclables, to try and survive, to try and have enough food to eat. These are individuals who, I've lived in Hong Kong for 14 and a half years now. I know how many narratives and stories are pushed on these people. Like, oh no, they like doing that. They like collecting cardboard. They want to keep active. They don't want to stay home and watch Netflix. No, they want to get out there. And I've heard these stories pushed all the time. But yeah, when you see them at night, They're digging in rubbish, disgusting, filthy rubbish with insects and spit and cigarette butts and rats. And they're putting their bodies into rubbish bins, 80-year-old women. And then in society, still so many people are like, oh no, she likes doing that. Just keep walking. And it's just become this normal thing. It's just a normal thing to see this. It should never be accepted that this is the way it is. 100% of the homeless that we work with have mental illness. Sleeping outside is impossibly difficult. It's horrible. I tried it a couple of times in Hong Kong, and I have to say it's an awful, awful experience. You don't sleep. And, if you add in the lack of nutrition, the lack of sleep, thinking about the pain from your past, but even worse, the hopelessness of your future, it really damages you. It hurts you. And you're not in a position where you could just leap up. Substance abuse, it's so normal when you're in pain, and we all do it in one way or another. You have a couple of beers too many, or you look at your phone and try not to focus on your stress. We work with people who have been raped countless times, people who have HIV, people who have tried committing suicide multiple times, failed. These are individuals who are in incredible pain. It's normal for them to want to escape that pain any way they can. You also have a choice when you see somebody who's a drug user. You can look at them and judge them, blame them, criticize them, or you can care for them. As a charity, I'm very proud. We employ drug users as they're using. So we employ heroin users while they're using. When somebody comes in high, that's a great opportunity for us. That's somebody who's seeking help. And the last thing I would do to somebody like that is push them away. They're all common with this community. Some of them are curable. Some of you are really, you got to get government support on the affordable housing, the unemployment, the poverty, mental illness, not enough mental illness. We need to get stronger as a charity on how we work with our substance abuse program and also the mental illness aspect. A lot of room to grow as a charity in those two because they're so prevalent in Hong Kong.
Do you have much support from mental health professionals or any support for the homeless if they have addictions? I wonder if you get any pro bono support or anything like that.
We do. We get great support. We work with Mind Hong Kong and some other great organizations. To be honest, it really is going to take a really strong program. We have had great success. We've gotten many individuals off drugs. We've had individuals who we met in the park using heroin every single day with needles, plus 85 milligrams of methadone every day. And now we've got them off heroin completely, off methadone completely. 2 kids back in his life, ex-wife back in his life. He's got a full-time job in a restaurant. We understand how we can do it, but I think it's having a stronger program. We're actually going to need, at some stage, we're going to need to have a center, which is like a rehabilitation center of our own, where people can go there, live there, get the counseling support there, mentorship there, sport art there. And in that place, once they're ready, then they would jump into our employment program. Whereas now what we do is we get them right into our employment program. We fail, we succeed, we fail, we succeed. It's a process. It works, but it's a much more challenging process than I think it has to be.
Jeff, you mentioned the average age of the homeless is 58, but Karen has asked if you see many young people sleeping rough out on the streets.
You don't see a lot of young people on the streets, and I think it's promising and it's also quite sad in some ways. We just helped an 18-year-old boy in shelter last week. He was somebody who actually was called out to us. He was going to jump off a building in Kowloon. Somebody saw him, and amazingly, they called us. We went there, he came down, got him into shelter. Right now, we're just working with him. To be honest, we've had a few kids in situations. During the protest time, we had a 16-year-old boy who was kicked out of his house. He was an anti-government guy, and I guess the parents were pro-government, and they just kicked him out, and he was nowhere to go. Thankfully, we've been housing him, still are housing him. You have a lot of game centers where the youth sleep. These are really bad places. There's a lot of drug use in game centers in Hong Kong. It's a really big problem. But suicide really is such a huge, huge issue on the streets. I think about 4 people every single day in Hong Kong jump off buildings to end their lives. It's a complete lack of hope and pain, of course. It worries me. I'm not sure the age of these people, but a lot of homeless people, because where would you go tonight? If you were homeless and you didn't know where to go, where would you go? A lot of them go to rooftops, and a lot of them are facing their darkest days where they don't see any way forward. It scares me in terms of how many homeless people, especially the youth, are committing suicide. I've had quite a few friends in the last couple of years die from jumping off rooftops. It's really horrible. Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
That is terribly sad. And I wonder how COVID-19 has impacted the homeless in Hong Kong.
Before COVID, we would typically serve about 70 or 80 people per meal in our center. And now we're like 250, sometimes up to 300. Homeless population in Hong Kong will probably double this year. It's a big issue, major job loss. Homeless themselves, they're not really too concerned over COVID. We pass out about 4,000 masks a week on the streets. We also pass out tons of hand sanitizer. We're trying to do our best. We also continue to feed every single day because if we don't, they won't eat. So we haven't stopped. They're not too worried about COVID because of much greater concerns in many ways than this virus, which is sad. In the next 2 months, we're really planning on helping another 50 people into shelter. We're partnering with Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, which is a medical charity in Hong Kong, and they see this as an emergency. They see it as a total emergency that this many new homeless people are going to be taken to the streets. If you look at the death rate on the streets, it is a medical emergency, and it's time that the government kind of opens their eyes to that rather than international charity.
And Jeff, so what can the parents who are listening today, if they wanted to give some sort of support to Impact Hong Kong, what could they do? Could they donate masks? Could they donate money? Could they give their time on kindness walks? What would be something that would be useful to you and your charity at the moment?
All of those things are awesome. Number one, again, first thing, just caring about this community, this homeless community that's very, very often just forgotten and blamed and just written off. Caring about them is always number one. Having a talk with your kids about it, maybe have a chat. Coming on a kindness walk is always a really good, easy step. It's not that much of a commitment. It's about an hour, hour and a half. Try doing it. I think it's a great thing to do with your kids. So I would highly, highly recommend it. Of course, financial donations is any small charity. It's what makes us tick. And through our website, you can make recurring donations, which are monthly donations through credit card, $50 a month, $100 a month. It really does add up. And for us as a charity, it's what's kind of given us the power to keep attacking. Any support there is always great. Sharing the message of ImpactHK is always great. Any support, we would all be so appreciative.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, Jeff. And just finally, I'd like to ask why it's important for young people to really care about others and give back to the community. What does it do for them? Not just building their curriculum vitae for when they go for internships or jobs, but what does it do for somebody personally to give back to the community?
If you look at hands-on Hong Kong as well, the research out there in terms of what it does for your own mental health and helping others is incredible. It's so, so important. If you think about the amount of hours you spend on homework, dedicating an hour a week to charity work will just pay huge, huge dividends for anybody, young or old. It's just a great, great activity to do. Another key message, I think, in all of this is how ImpactHK just started with this single ambition of just caring. Just the one single ambition. Let's just go out, show some care. Students and the youth, they don't really, or anybody, they don't take that first step because they feel like they have to hit a home run in their first bat. They feel like they have to just solve homelessness in one go. But it's really important when you speak to the youth to make sure they understand, just take a step towards it. Take a step towards something you're passionate about, that you care about. And maybe that first step will lead to a second step or a third step. And maybe along that ride, you'll get an education of how you can help more. Career-wise, striving for what? I've done all kinds of jobs in my life. I must say, right now, I absolutely love my work. I wake up every single day and I'm excited to go to work. And I think that's something that should be encouraged, do something meaningful. The earth right now is in tough shape. It's so important, I think, that we do think about jobs that are in helping, something we should all focus on.
Jeff, I think that brings us close to the end of our webinar. Parents, does anybody have any final questions for Jeff before we say goodbye? If you wanted to type them into the chat, now would be the time to do it. Okay, so Jeff, thank you so much for speaking to us today. And we're getting some thank yous coming in from the parents. Thank you for leading the way in helping others. It's really been wonderful having you here, and we really, really appreciate you giving up your time. Some of the parents are saying that they'll see you on the kindness walk soon, which is amazing. Just thank you so much for joining us as well, parents. And thank you, Jeff, for being part of our wonderful Frontier program for our Year 13s. It's been great having you as a keynote speaker for the parents and the students. I hope that we can all make a difference out in there in the world, because it is really, really important. And Ritu said very inspiring. Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting, Jules. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Pip Karen will be joining up for a walk as well. It's really, really lovely. So On behalf of West Island School, Jeff, thank you so much for all that you do for the homeless in Hong Kong and for helping educate our students about being global citizens and give back to the world. Thank you, parents, for being here. We really, really appreciate you giving up your time for this talk.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.